So just last month, Kilmer Armando Albrego Garcia was deported to El Salvador despite a 2019 court order that explicitly blocked that from happening. Now, while the White House initially admitted it was a mistake, their stance has since changed. Now, they're resisting a Supreme Court directive telling them to facilitate his return, a vague term that they're using to dodge accountability. In this video, we're breaking down the standoff between Trump and the courts and whether this amounts to a full-blown constitutional crisis. And importantly, why Caribbean nationals living in the United States should pay close attention. Because if this can happen to somebody with legal protections, it could happen to anyone without US citizenship, no matter how long they've lived there or how clean their record is. Now be sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you never miss a video. Now let's walk through the events. Now court records show that Kilmer Armando Albrego Garcia was born in El Salvador in 1995, a time when violent crimes dominated parts of the country. Now after threats from the notorious gang Barrio 18, he fled to the United States in 2011, entering illegally without documents. Now he ended up in Maryland, where his brother, now a US citizen, had already settled. By 2018, Garcia was living with his American girlfriend Jennifer, who became pregnant soon after. Then in 2019, under Trump's first term, Garcia was arrested by ICE while looking for construction work. Now, once they discovered that he was undocumented, removal proceedings began. When Garcia applied for bail, ICE objected, accusing him of being a part of MS-13's Western clique. The evidence, a document written by a Maryland detective hours after his arrest, pointing to his Chicago Bulls hat as gang attire and citing information from a confidential informant. But here is the problem. Garcia has never even lived in New York, where this particular gang clique supposedly operated. Now, when Garcia's lawyer asked for more information, they found no police report, and the detective behind the document had been suspended for leaking information to a sex worker. Now, despite the flimsy case, the judge sided with ICE. Garcia was then locked up for most of 2019. Now, while detained, Garcia married Jennifer and applied for asylum. That was then denied, but another judge granted him withholding removal, a legal status that stopped his deportation to El Salvador due to serious risk of prosecution. Now, from there, Garcia followed every rule. He had yearly check-ins, a valid work permit, and a full-time job, and even vocational classes at the University of Maryland. Then came the 12th of March. ICE officers pulled him over and claimed that his status had changed, and without a warrant, they put him on a plane to El Salvador 3 days later. He was imprisoned in a notorious mega prison built by El Salvador's president to hold alleged gang members, many without trial. He had no criminal record, no charges, and most importantly, he had a court order protecting him from this exact scenario. A federal judge later ordered them to facilitate his return by the 7th of April. The administration responded by claiming that it was not a foreign policy matter, something that is outside of the jurisdiction of the court. Now, the case went to the Supreme Court, and they ruled unanimously that the government must facilitate his return. But they admitted that they can't force the president to take action. Now, in essence, they said, we can't make you do it, but we expect you to try. Now, Trump made it clear he had no interest in bringing Garcia back. At a press conference with Bukalele, he painted the situation as a win, claiming that the courts had no right to interfere in foreign policy, and framing Garcia as somebody who didn't belong in the United States. Now, the judge is still demanding updates on what steps are being taken to fix the situation. But if El Salvador refuses to release Garcia and the Trump administration refuses to negotiate, it's unclear if the courts have any real power of enforcement. Now, here is why this should alarm Caribbean nationals living in the United States. Many people from Jamaica, Trinidad, and Haiti and other Caribbean nations are in similar legal gray zones. Undocumented, they're on temporary protection, or they're waiting on asylum claims. Now, even if you're following every rule, married to a US citizen, working legally, and protected by a court order, this case proves that none of that might be enough. Now, what's worse is that ICE agents basically acted without a warrant and the White House is ignoring a federal court ruling. Now, if this precedent stands, it means that the government could deport anybody without due process and face little to no consequences. Now, for the Caribbean community, even if you have a green card or a visa, this raises serious red flags. If rights can be stripped so easily, who in America can be safe right now? Now, Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, she noted that this sets a dangerous precedent. If someone can be deported illegally and legal action isn't filed before the plane takes off, there might be no way for them to come back. That's not just a legal technicality, it's a human rights disaster waiting to happen. So while legal scholars debate whether this is already a constitutional crisis, one thing is clear. The Trump White House is treating court orders like suggestions and not authorities. And that's terrifying. And not just for Albrego Garcia, but for anybody who thought they were safe under the law. Because if rules don't apply to the powerful, then none of us are really protected. You take care, and I'll see you on the next one.